Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into the Vibrant Health Podcast, hosted by myself, Jessica Espinoza, and my friend and colleague, Lydia Shatney. I am a wellness coach and educator whose main goal is to help inspire you to live your most vibrant life. You can find me writing about all things health and wellness over at deliciousobsessions.com and jessicaespinoza.com. Lydia is a nutritional therapist and founder of the Divine Health from the InsideOut.com website, where she works with clients all over the country and helps them improve and regain their health using nutritional and mineral balancing protocols. We are so excited that you're taking time out of your day to tune in. But before we get started, since this is a health-related podcast, it should be noted that we are not licensed medical professionals. The information and advice provided in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, or prescribe for any illness or health issue and should not be construed as medical advice. You should always consult with your medical practitioner before making any changes to your diet, supplementation, medication, or lifestyle. Now, on to today's episode. Thank you for tuning in. Let's get this show started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode number 31 of the Vibrant Health Podcast. We're really excited about today's talk and are so glad that you decided to join us. Today, we're going to be talking about the thyroid again, and specifically, we're going to touch on the role of potassium and how it supports thyroid health. So, hey, Lydia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It is warming up here on the East Coast, and spring is on the horizon, at least when we're recording this. So I'm feeling happy and a little more motivation.
That's good.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we're talking about one of our favorite topics. It seems like adrenal health and thyroid health is our favorite stuff to talk about. And we're going to dive into the role of potassium in thyroid health today. So can you tell us a little bit about why potassium is so important?
I sure can. Potassium is pretty important, and, I just think we don't hear much about it, especially, when it comes to thyroid health. You'll hear a lot about thyroid health and, what blood markers you need and, I don't know, some key things, but really the minerals don't come up much. So we talked about the role of minerals recently, but now I just want to kind of get specific about potassium because so many people really benefit from adding it in and really focusing on it. And it's really, potassium is kind of an adrenal and thyroid related mineral, and it's really important to both cellular and electrical functions in our body. It's actually one of our main electrolyte minerals. And magnesium also helps to maintain the potassium in our cells. So, we've talked about magnesium quite a bit. So they kind of coordinate. But potassium is actually, it's well absorbed from our small intestine, about 90% absorption, and often it's easily lost in cooking and processed foods. Or, if people are sweating a lot, they're going to lose some potassium and need to remember to replace it. In light of that, some people sweat like crazy pants. Some people don't. So if you're a sweater, you may want to be thinking about replacing your potassium. So, and then that's partly why you're going to see sports drink kind of overemphasizing the electrolytes in sports drinks. And potassium is an electrolyte mineral.
Awesome. So, yeah, you hear about potassium a lot when it comes to blood pressure health. But actually, when you were putting together the notes for this call, this was the first time that I'd really gotten some focused information on potassium's role with just supporting the thyroid. It was something that I had never really considered, so I'm excited to dive into it. So let's talk about specifically what is potassium's role in thyroid health. Why is it so important?
Well, one of the biggest things, and of course this is going to tie into your adrenal health too, so just kind of automatically assume that, but a lot of people know they have thyroid issues and they don't really know enough about their adrenals. So you got to always remember the two are very tied together. But anyway, fatigue is going to be probably the most common symptom of chronic potassium deficiency. And this is one thing that I'm dealing with in clients all the time, mostly women or mothers, but it's pretty across the board that the majority of people need more potassium, and they're just very, very deficient. So it's something that needs to be taken in consideration when you're trying to heal your body and get healthy. It's also important to know this because potassium is needed in quite large amounts in the diet. It could be upwards of about 4,700 milligrams or more, just depending on, your size and age and that kind of thing. But this is for adults, namely 4,700 milligrams per day or more. And to give you an idea of how much that is, it's about a serving of maybe 2 cups of spinach, 1 medium sweet potato, a cup of whole milk yogurt, a banana, a cup of cooked broccoli, a cup of cantaloupe, and maybe a cup of tomato. That's just we threw that together randomly there in terms of all the quantity of potassium in each of those. And that, some people may be getting that, but we also have to remember, are we absorbing and digesting all the potassium we're consuming if we are indeed getting enough daily? So this is a lot. It's hard to get this daily, even in a really healthy diet. I actually did an experiment myself for an entire week. I logged all of my food, and I looked up the mineral values of everything. Boy, was that tedious.
Wow.
And I calculated it. And, of course, you have to remember, we don't know for sure if these are exact amounts because we don't know what the potassium quantity in the soil and such. So we're really kind of guessing a little here, okay? Anywho, and I eat pretty good, and I try really hard to eat good mixture of veggies and things like that. And I was not always getting to that mark, So it is pretty tough to do. So, we want to talk a little bit about some condensed ways to get more potassium in your diet. And I have some recipes and things on my site that talk about this. And I try to focus on it here and there. But I knew a lot about potassium back in the years when I was training to become a nutritional therapist. But I really learned an exponential amount since I began administrating hair tissue mineral analysis for my clients and myself and my kids even. And these hair tests really give insight into the potassium levels in each individual. So, you can take a better approach to achieve mineral balance. And we've talked about that countless times. But so to give you, the listener, some insight, lower hair tissue potassium level is going to be associated with reduced cellular effects of thyroid hormone. Dr. Eck, he's kind of one of the main guys who kind of figured all this out back in the day in the 70s. And he felt that this occurs because it's known that low potassium is associated with reduced sensitivity of the mitochondrial receptors to thyroid hormone. Also, low potassium and sodium are associated with reduced cell permeability to thyroid hormones, and they may impair the sensitivity of the tissues to thyroid hormone. So in response, the body may elevate T4 and or possibly T3 production as a compensation. So a quick aside is we a lot of us are learning a lot about how to test for a more full thyroid picture in terms of a thyroid panel, right? But we're not hearing much about the minerals, and a lot of people are not doing HTMA yet. It's not been widely accepted. So that's why I personally love seeing both. I love to see both pieces of information because we get a fuller picture there and we can start to support the body with the minerals. You can take all the thyroid hormone in the world, but if you don't have the minerals, you're going to be kind of stuck and not really go forward too much there. So T4 and T3, really quick. We have TRH acts on the anterior pituitary. That's thyroid-releasing hormone. And that's directly below the hypothalamus, but outside of the blood-brain barrier. And this will produce thyrotropin, a.k.a. your thyroid-stimulating hormone, which is TSH. TSH acts on the thyroid gland, which produces thyroxine, which is T3, and triiodithyronine, which I hope I said that right, and that's T3. And this is your primary circulating thyroid hormone, these two. Now, you don't really need to understand this to its full extent, but I want to explain ways to aid your overall health here. That's why we kind of need to talk a little bit about this, so I've got some context here. So back to the T4 and or T3 elevation. It could be that even serum T4 and T3 thyroid hormone levels are normal when tissue potassium is low, they simply may not be able to be utilized. So I tell people all the time, like, you may have perfectly adequate thyroid hormone on a panel, and your doctor will be like, oh, your readings are fine. You have no problems, but you feel symptoms of, low thyroid or thyroid dysfunction. And that's why the tissue mineral levels are going to be so helpful, because we can see, well, maybe you're just, at the cellular level, it's not effective. So when tissue potassium is low, your hormone's maybe not being utilized well, and this will give you a low thyroid effect.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and so, like, I have low potassium. I'm not your typical hypothyroid person. My labs come back great, but I have low potassium, and I'm struggling to bring that up. So I do have a little bit of some symptoms there. So what the potassium does is that it plays a role in sensitizing your mitochondria to the thyroid hormone. So the reason I've chosen to focus on the deficiency of potassium is because I rarely find elevated levels of this key mineral in hair tests. It does occur. It's rare. And usually it's a stress response, and we can bring it down quickly and really get a feel for where the person's at when we get rid of the stress response in the body. So in the instance where this does happen with my clients, that potassium may not be being absorbed effectively, and it can be dumped into the hair. So most of us all really do need plenty of potassium. There are some times when we have to kind of wait, depending if someone has like severe blood pressure issues or really loose bowels, that kind of thing, before we can really supplement with it. But generally speaking, we all really need dietary potassium. There are going to be some health conditions and things that your doctor may advise against that. So please do not disregard that per se, just because of what I'm saying here. But it's pretty fascinating.
Absolutely.
Pretty
it
important.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the signs and symptoms of potassium deficiency so that people can maybe see, because, you hear that every now and then that, people go and they get their thyroid checked and their lab looks normal, but they're still feeling bad. They're still having symptoms, and that makes a lot of sense that it could be a mineral issue where the cells are just not being sensitive to the hormone that is there. So let's talk a little bit about the signs and symptoms of potassium deficiency.
Sure. And in case that you haven't had a hair test or something specifically to test your thyroid or your potassium levels, this is good information for you to know, to get understanding of what these symptoms could be, and in case you're experiencing them. And actually, I hear it's very common for many of these symptoms to be present in a lot of people. So number one, fatigue. Fatigue. It's a big one. There's a lot of potential reasons for fatigue. But low potassium is seen in slow oxidation, and we've talked about that before, and that's basically decreased metabolism. When you have a decreased metabolism, you also have low energy, because you just can't get your energy from your food effectively. Constipation is another one. Potassium has an effect on the bowel, and it helps, the bowel move properly and have good peristalsis. So people who are constipated could really benefit from trying out some potassium, likely, or at least getting it in your food more. Heart irregularities, low blood sugar, muscle weakness, water retention, allergies or histamine reactions, low blood pressure. Another thing about potassium deficiency, and I can speak to this, it's a frequent cause of bloating, and it's a very common issue in people with hyperthyroidism. So ensuring adequate potassium levels may be essential to getting your body to kind of looking and feeling its best. So that's just a little side note there. And honestly, probably 90% or more of the hair tests I've seen have low potassium.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty big issue across the board for most people, probably.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
So are there some common conditions that are also associated? Because, a lot of the symptoms could really be applicable to a lot of different things.
Right.
So are there any specific conditions that are associated with potassium deficiency?
Yeah, totally. So like we said, adrenal insufficiency is going to be one. Parasympathetic dominance, which is more of an unhealthy state of parasympathetic where your body is just too sluggish, basically. You need a little more energy, vitality, so these people tend to be slowed down in a lot of ways. Hyperparathyroidism, hypochlorhydria, which is, inadequate hydrochloric acid in the stomach to digest your food. Poor digestion in general, acne, hypothyroidism, fatigue, hypoglycemia, transient hypertension. I see that a lot. Carpopedal spasms and cardiac irregularity. Potassium's a big heart mineral as well. Yeah, so those are just some, kind of things that maybe people will resonate with in terms of the condition, but that's pretty broad. It
is. It's very, very broad. It seems to touch almost every part of the body based on that list, from your skin to your heart. So we've talked about the symptoms and conditions, so let's focus specifically on what potassium can do for your body. What are some of the key things that potassium can do for us?
Well, potassium actually has a profound effect on the functioning of the liver, so that's pretty important to know. Like I said, it's critical for heart function, and then it plays a role in nerve function and cellular integrity by regulating the transfer of nutrients into the cell. Potassium attracts oxygen to our tissues, and when we have a lack of it, it will reduce oxygenation. Potassium also can support your muscular system. It'll increase tissue and blood alkalinity. It acts as a nerve tonic. It reduces acidity. It promotes good health and vigor. It helps eliminate toxins and supports our healthy nerves. And then signs of possible deficiency can include overacidity, reduced oxygenation, aches and pains, mental illness, restlessness, low energy levels, skin disorders, possibly elevated cholesterol and triglycerides, nervousness, anxiety, and hypo or hypertension. It can go either way there. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so everybody that's listening, if they've been following us for any amount of time, they know that you and I, neither one of us, are advocates of going out and just grabbing supplements off the shelf and starting to take things without really understanding what's going on with your biochemistry. So food is always the best medicine. So what are the best sources of potassium that we can focus on getting just through our diet without having to necessarily supplement? Some people are probably going to need supplements, but you would definitely advise, and I would advise, that they're working with a practitioner before they start just taking potassium supplements. So
yeah, because people even with well intentions may do it totally wrong and screw themselves up. I'm not even kidding. It shouldn't be surprising, but it is to me that someone will just not think clearly, and they'll be like, "Oh, I just took 2 scoops of this stuff I got," and then they are having heart palpitations, and I'm like, "Well, you just took like 2,400 milligrams of potassium at one time."
Potassium can be dangerous in too high of doses or the wrong dose for you, depending on the situations. I've heard stories of people who have overdone it with the potassium and they've ended up with heart problems. So, yeah, definitely. What is that? What do we say? The ounce of prevention? Or I forget what
the pound of cure.
Sometimes we overdo it.
Yeah, and
something's good.
I know, and honestly, I know people don't want to hear me say you really do need guidance with supplementation because they think they can do it themselves, and some people can. Some people are very, take the time and do a ton of research and very cautious and everything, but some people are just really want to feel better, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to try this. And it's kind of that almost knee-jerk desperation reaction that can get us in trouble. So we have to really repeat ourselves time and time again, because honestly, I see this happening all the time. People don't read the instructions properly or something, and I don't want to see that happen. So all that said, please don't go run out and start supplementing with tons of potassium or anything like that. But you certainly can benefit from, knowing what sources are in the diet and how to try to increase that. Of course. Now, again, the soil is really going to be important here. So obviously source the best quality of everything that you possibly can. I don't know too many people who are purposely remineralizing the soil.
Right.
So just keep that in mind. You may be getting organic and pesticide-free and everything like that, but not everywhere is really focused on remineralizing the soil. So you want to do the best you can with your food, but just know, even though you go and Google how much is in a carrot or whatever, it may vary wildly, okay?
Right.
So anyway, whole foods are always going to be a great place to start. And, of course, always chewing your food well and focusing on, supporting your digestion. If you're already doing that, great. If not, start to learn some ways you can do that. But I personally love to tell people, especially my really low potassium clients who are adrenal fatigue, they have low thyroid symptoms, they have anxiety or depression, or they have that afternoon lull, which so many people have that mid-afternoon. They're just like, oh, I'm struggling, and their mood's not great, and their energy's not great. I like to tell people to start with a beverage that's rich in potassium because it's going to hit you quicker.
Right.
You're not going to have to digest it as much as you would food. So I like to tell people, shoot for a beverage when you're feeling like that. So if you have anxiety or any of these things, you may want to try some coconut water. Coconut water is very rich in potassium, and some good brands are, I'm not up on, I haven't researched in about a year about coconut brands. So I was using Harvest Bay, CO2. The less processed, the better, because, even in the processing and everything, you're going to lose some of that potassium. Or even like a fresh coconut cracked open if you have access to that. Carrot juice is another way. If you can handle carrot juice in your diet, that can get you a nice little hit of potassium. Nettles tea, especially if you steep the nettles long enough, you're going to get a little bit of a potassium hit there. And another way would be some hot tea with blackstrap organic molasses. Now, this is going to vary wildly with the soil again. So, different bottles will say different amounts. But it's a nice concentrated hit of potassium. So if you put like a teaspoon in your spiced chai or whatever, that's a nice little way to get some potassium as well. So those, I would start with the drinks because it's quicker. You're going to feel the benefits more quickly. But then we've got, some meats. We've got turkey, beef, cod. Of course, quality matters here, right? Actually, yogurt. Yogurt has a good sodium and potassium balance, which is nice to balance both of those minerals, especially if you're low in both, which is pretty common. It's not always the case, but so that's a nice one for my really tired people who have both low sodium and potassium. And then, as long as you tolerate dairy, that is. And this does not go for really, coconut yogurt might have a decent amount of potassium, but I don't know if it has a good balance. This is really just regular yogurt here. And then to give you an idea of some approximate cooked vegetable amounts so you can take into consideration which ones you may want to add to your diet. 1 cup of cooked beet greens is around 1,308 milligrams of potassium. That's probably the heaviest hitter I know of.
I know.
And nobody eats beet greens, right?
I know.
Nobody.
I'm not a huge fan of beet greens, but I would make myself eat it now that I know how much potassium is in there.
Yeah, and some people may have trouble with beet greens for other reasons, but if you can totally eat them, the spring is coming. We're going to have beets in season pretty soon, and so think about saving those beet greens and figuring out ways to cook them. I love to throw them in a beef stew. Just throw them in there, chop them up, Then Swiss chard is another one. A cup of cooked Swiss chard is about 960 milligrams. So that's another heavy hitter there. 1 medium sweet potato, about 950 milligrams. A cup of cooked winter squash, about 494 milligrams. A cup of cooked carrot, 390 milligrams. If you're not cooking your carrots, you're gonna juice them, you may get a little more than that, just because the cooking will kind of deplete a little bit of that potassium. So don't be overcooking your food here. Don't cook it to death. A cup of cooked cabbage, 393 milligrams. Spinach, 1 cup of spinach, 838 milligrams. 838. Summer squash, a cup of cooked summer squash, about 345 milligrams, a cup of cooked kale, about 10 or 96 milligrams, and a cup of cooked green beans, 182 milligrams.
Wow. Well, I need to eat myself some more beet greens and some more Swiss chard.
I love Swiss chard, and it's really easy to grow.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. It stores well, and it grows all year long, and it's such a good one. A lot of people don't use Swiss chard. It's just not very common.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you are a gardener, think about testing your soil and kind of working on the minerals in your soil for sure. And then I talked about this a minute ago, but I want to kind of reiterate this again, is potassium, the potassium found in molasses. A single tablespoon of molasses contain around 293 milligrams. I've seen it upwards of 750 in 2 tablespoons. So, compare that to 1 cup of cooked kale, which contains about that same amount. Mm-hmm. So think about the molasses as a quicker, easier way to get it in if you like it. Not everybody likes molasses.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a mineral-rich sweetener. So don't be too turned off by it because it's sugar. Unless you have severe blood sugar issues, you may want to avoid that for now, or serious candida overgrowth or something. But in an average person who's reasonably healthy, adding this in is not a problem. And I have some great recipes on my site, and I've linked up to a bunch of molasses-related recipes to help people figure out ways to kind of get this into their diet, because I think maybe our grandparents probably were fine with eating molasses, and we just kind of lost it along the way. So we don't really know how to use it. So I have some recipes there, and I hope this information really encourages people, especially, the winter, thankfully we're almost through here, at least at the time we're recording this. And, sometimes getting that in more can really help you get through those bleak winter months where most people are more, prone to suffer from depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're someone who does struggle with nervousness or anxiety and depression, you really could benefit from trying to add more potassium-rich foods for several days. I have seen so many people just totally flabbergasted by how much it has helped them. Okay. And they, many of my clients have reported back, they're like, I'm so anxious and and they don't understand it, and they're really trying to be healthy, and they just didn't know about potassium, and they added, a potassium-rich beverage in, and it really, really helped their mood and well-being. So,
great.
Yeah, take that into consideration if that sounds like you.
Awesome. I wanted to toss it in too, because you were talking about the recipes, and I think that we have forgotten to mention this in all of our other mineral podcasts, but you do have a really awesome group on Facebook that's open to the public where people can join to learn more about minerals, and you share recipes and little nuggets of gold in there almost daily. So we'll definitely leave a link down there. And if you're on Facebook and you're interested in learning more about minerals and getting access to really mineral-rich recipes that Lydia has vetted, so she looks at them and knows that they're going to be good for her clients and anybody looking to boost their minerals. We'll put a link down there, and definitely join it. It's a great group, tons of awesome information.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for mentioning that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that kind of concludes it for today. This was a really good overview on thyroid health and potassium, and really going through the numbers of what we can get from our food, too. We don't necessarily have to run out and start taking supplements with anything. So start with your food and see if you notice an improvement in how you're feeling throughout the day.
Yep. And if you're ready to look at the deeper picture of your health through learning your mineral status, you're welcome to check out the link for hair tissue mineral analysis and tackle that part of your health. We'll check out the links for that as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are going to wrap up then, and we will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Vibrant Health Podcast. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to the information we're sharing. If this information resonated with you and you know others who could benefit from it, we would love it if you'd share it with them. We'd also be very appreciative if you could leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher. If you're on our sites or YouTube listening to this, we'll have links down below where you can leave a review. If you're on your phone listening through the app, you can also leave a review directly through the app. It only takes about a minute, super fast, super easy, and your shares and reviews help us reach more people with our message of health and wellness. So we really, really appreciate your support. If you're looking for more information on health and wellness in general, both Lydia and I have a ton of information on our sites. You can find me over at jessicaespinoza.com, which is my main practice website and where I offer my 21-day sugar detox coaching. And in the future, I'm going to be offering nutritional therapy coaching as well. You can also find me on deliciousobsessions.com, which is my main real food and natural living website. You can find Lydia over at divinehealthfromtheinsideout.com, where she offers nutritional therapy consultations and hair tissue mineral analysis services for those who are ready to take their health to the next level. Lastly, if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, we would absolutely love to hear from you. We want these podcasts to be as informational and inspirational as possible, and we'd love to hear from you and understand exactly what you would like us to cover. You can email us or leave a comment below or even give us a shout out on social media. We both look forward to serving you and inspiring you to live the healthiest, happiest lives possible. Thanks for listening.